We're going to get started, guys. I just have give some thought. I'm thinking if we can try to start the next few mornings closer to 8 rather than 8:15. We'll see how that affects what we can cover and see if what we have to do about Tisha B'Av. Okay? I know it puts a little more pressure on some of us.
Okay, so no shear on, obviously on Thursday morning, no shear Thursday.
No, Thursday morning there won't be a shear because even regularly you're not supposed to study non-appropriate topics on Tisha B'Av in the morning.
Okay.
Could do it in the afternoon. So if we need to have a shear, there's a sound echo, I'm sorry. If we need to have a shear, we would do it in the afternoon.
Okay.
Okay, but I figure let's at least try to start a few minutes earlier at 8, and we'll see if that will affect it as well. Okay, I'm going to have a start on actually 141, all right, with the new parak, the new Mishnah. I know we'll have to push ourselves a little bit today. Okay, so we're dealing with the issue of muksa, especially regarding the subject of a base. If you put something on top of it or if it's holding something, whether you can handle it on Shabbat. Okay, everybody is muted. Okay, I don't know if that's causing the echo. Okay, notila demet bano v'ha'evan biyado. A person can handle his child, right? And even if the child has a rock, a stone in his hand. V'kalkala v'ha'evan b'tocha, in a basket with a stone inside it. U'metaltalin truma tmeya im ha'tohora. And one may handle tamei truma im tahor truma ve'im hachulin, and even if it's mixed also with chulin. Question being, one might have thought maybe because a regular person can't eat it, maybe they shouldn't be able to handle it on Shabbat either. Okay? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, says Rabbi Yehuda, af ma'alin et ha'umah ve'echad umeya. That he says one can handle this mixture of truma with chulin. So when it is neutralized, when it's batel, 1 in 100. Okay, we'll come back to that. Amar Rava, says Rava, hotzi tinok chai v'kis talui b'tzavaro. If he carries out a live child, and the child is has some sort of purse, around the neck,
a pouch.
Wallet, pouch, something like that, right? He would be, according to Rava, he is chayav chatas because of this pouch, this money bag. Tinok mate, if it's a dead child, the kis talui lo, and still a monetary, right, saddlebag, pouch, b'tzavaro patur, then he's exempt. Tinok chai v'kis talui lo b'tzavaro, says the Gemara, a live child with a money pouch around his neck, chayav mishum kis. Okay, once he seems to be implying, Rava, that he would be chayav the chatat and Shabbat for doing so because of the kis, because of the pouch. Ulechayev nami mishum tinok. Let him also be considered obligated to bring a chatas because the child acts as a base in lifting for the handling of the money pouch. Rabba karabi Natan svirale. Rabba holds like Rabbi Natan. The Amar, he says, Chai no seyet atzmo, that a living person is able to carry oneself. Okay? V'livatel kis legabe tinok. If that's the case, says the Gemara, okay, and you're saying that you can have the concept of batel, certainly the child's size should be a lot bigger than the size of this money pouch, okay, and therefore it should make the money pouch insignificant, invalidated, neutralized. Ni lo tanan, because isn't it taught at the chai b'mita patur, okay, that if a living person, if one carries out a living person in a bed, okay, one is not culpable. Afal hamita shahamita tfeilalo. Why? Because the bed is considered in relation to the person negligible, right? Mita legabe chai, mavat lele, says the Gemara. The bed, in terms of the person, that becomes nullified. Kis legabe tinok, lo mavat lele. But a money pouch in regards to the child does not become neutralized. Tinok mate, v'kis talui lo b'tzavaro pator. But our text said that with a dead child wearing this money pouch around his neck, the person who carrying the child is exempt. Mishum tinok. So if that's the case, let him simply then be considered chayiv chatat on Shabbat because of the infant himself. Rava k'Rabbi Shimon svirale. And now we say that Rava holds like Rabbi Shimon, who says, Kol malacha she'ena tzricha legufa patur aleh. Okay, that any kind of an act that is where the act of labor is done, not for the sake of that particular purpose, okay, but it still could result in an act of labor, one is not considered obligated on it. Tanan. And we learn elsewhere in another Braita, Notel Adam et Bano, Va'evan Biado. Okay, a person who picks up, handles their child with the child holding a stone in his hand. Amre de Be Rabbi Yanai. They say then in the school of Rabbi Yanai, B'tinok sheyesh lo Yagu'in al aviv. That's in a situation where the child has longing, okay, for the father, all right? Ihachi, if that's the case, is the Gemara. All right, let's go to our page today, Kaf Mem Bet, 142a, my area Evan. So what's so significant then about the stone? Afilu dinar nami. If that's the case, even if the child is holding a coin in his hand, right, does that mean that the father is going to be chayav? Alama amar Rava. So why did Rava say this? Lo shanu ela evan. Okay, they only taught this in regards to the issue of a stone. Okay, aval dinar asur. But if the child had a coin in his hand, it would be forbidden for the father to lift the child. Okay, Evan, ineflala. Okay, if the stone, if it fell down, lo ate avuha la atuye. The father would have no reason to get it, to fetch it, to pick it up. Dinar, inefal, ate avuha la atuye. If the coin fell from the child's hand, there might be a chance that the father would pick it up. Now, a new piece from our following along. Tanya Kivate de Rava, and there were those who taught a Braita in accordance with Rava, Hamotzi Kelav Mekufalin, okay, that if one is carrying out his garments and they're folded, Umanachim al Ktefo, and they're resting on his shoulder, V'sandalav v'ta'abotav biado, and his sandals and his rings are in his hand, chayav, doing so on Shabbat, from the house into the, outside, he would be chayav. V'im hayam milovash behen, but if he's wearing these items, patur, he's exempt. Okay. Continuing. Hamotzi Adam v'kelav alav v'sandalav beraglav v'ta'abotav biyado. One situation where a person carries out his garments, right? And the garments are on him. Okay, he's carrying out a person, all right? And the person has their garments on them and their sandals on their feet and their rings on their fingers. Patur, the person carrying would be exempt. Ve'ilu hotzian kimot shahen, but if he carried out the items by themselves without the person, chayav, he would then be considered obligated to bring a chatas. Okay. Back now to our statement in our Mishnah. Okay, kalkala v'ha'even b'tocha, regarding the basket with the stone in it. Va'amai, asks the Gemara, why is this the case? Tahave kalkala basis l'davar hasur. Shouldn't let it be that the basket then serves as a base for something that is forbidden to carry, namely the carrying of the stone. Amar Rabba bar bar Chana, says Rabba bar bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says here, Hacha v'kalkala milea perot askinan. We're dealing with a basket that's full of fruit. So the Gemara says, V'lishadinhu la prairie. Okay, so toss the fruit out on the ground, so to speak. V'nishdei la'evan, and then let the stone roll out with it, throw it out at the same time. Okay, v'niknin katinhu biyadayim, and then we'll gather up the fruit by our hands. K'de Rabbi Eli, as is the view of Rabbi Eli, right? Amar Rav, who says in the name of Rav elsewhere, but Perot Hamitanafin. Okay, says, but that only applies to fruit that's not going to be soiled or spoiled by throwing it on the ground. Hachanami Perot Hamitinafin. Here too, we're now talking with, in our case, of the basket with the stone in it and the fruit, with the fruit that could be spoiled. So the Gemara says, in this case, V'li naharinhu ne'uri. So shake it. In other words, shake it so that the fruit is one side and the stone, so to speak, is on the other side. Okay? Amar Rav Chia bar Ashi, says Rav Chia bar Ashi, Amar Rava, Hacha b'kalkala pichuta askinen. Here he says we're dealing also with a situation that the basket is broken, it's punctured. Gufa ne'aseit dofen l'kalkala. And the stone itself is sort of wedged in to the hole or to the broken part of the basket and serves as a side of the basket. Okay? Going on. Now, metaltalin truma. We said that somebody could handle on Shabbat this mixture, right, of tamei truma with tahor truma, and even with cholin. Amar Rav Chisda, says Rav Chisda, lo shanu elam shetahora lemata utmea lemala. According to Rav Chisda, this was only taught where the tahor truma was on the bottom and the tamei truma was on the top. Okay, aval tahora lemala, but if the tahor was on the top, utmea lemata, and the tamei was on the bottom, shakil le l'tahara, v'shavik le l'tmea. Okay, in that case, right, then what are we saying? That, okay, he must, Okay, that then, why? Because he could take the clean off the top, right? Otherwise, he has to, that's what he can do. Take the clean off the top and leave the tmeya in the bottom of the basket.
Rabbi?
Yeah.
Can tame produce be used for anything at all? Does it have any usefulness, like to feed to poor people or to feed to animals? Or
Probably could be fed to animals.
uh-huh.
Okay. Right? V'chi tahora lamata, says the Gemara then. And if the tahor truma is on the bottom, says the Gemara, nami lishtinhu v'lin nakatinhu. He says, if that's the case, so let him sort of shake it, move it, right? And then take out what he can from it, right? Okay, sort of throw it on, even in case, again, possibly throw it on the ground and then pick it up, what he needs. Amar Rabbi Eli, Amar Rav. But Rabbi Eli says in the name of Rav, okay? But Perot, Hamit Nafin Askina. Before, the example was we were dealing with a fruit, okay? Produce that could become soiled or spoiled the soil. And this could be the same case with this truma. Okay? Now, Gemara continues. Meitive, but we'll challenge this with the following Braita. Metaltalin truma, tmeya, im hatahora, that we may handle tmeya truma with tahor, with good truma, ve'im hachulin, and with chalin, bein shetahora lemala utmeya lemata, whether the good, the tahor truma is above and the tame truma is below, bein shetmeya lemala tahora lemata. Or, I'm saying, if the tmeya is above and the Torah is below, tiyuv to the Rav Chisda. This seems to be a proof text against Rav Chisda. Amar lach Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda, however, would answer us with the following: Matnitin letzorach gufo. That our Mishnah is talking about a requirement for basically itself. In other words, for needing the truma itself. He needs the clean truma. That's why it's important that it be on top, so he can simply take it and leave the rest, right? Braita letzorach mekomo. But our Braita, which says you can move it, move the basket, the container of truma, regardless of what's on top or what's on bottom, is because we simply need to move the basket because we need the place. We need the location where the basket is for some other purpose. Okay. Now, my duchaya de Rav Chisda leokme matnitin letzorach gufo, asks the Gemara, what is the reason that Rav Chisda was sort of forced to be able to establish our Mishnah on the principle of letzorach gufo, right? For the need of the direct object itself, the truma. Amar Rava, says Rava, matnitin kivate daika. Because the Mishnah itself seems to spell this out, okay? Seems to be directly saying that, okay? Right, namely, and it seems to be supporting him. The Katani Seifa, because then our Mishnah teaches later at the end, Ma'ot Sha'al Hakar, okay? Namely, if you have coins on a pillow, Mina'er et Hakar Ve'heino float. You shake the pillow and the coins fall off by themselves. V'amar Rava bar Bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan. And Rabbi Bar Bar Chana says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Lo shanu ela letzorech gufo. They only taught this approach, this method, let's say, because he needed the pillow itself. Aval letzorech mekomo. But if it was the fact that he needed the space, okay, of where the pillow was, and these coins are on it, right? Aval letzorech mekomo. Metaltalo v'oden alav. He has to lift up the pillow with the coins on it and then move it. Umideseifa letzorech gufo. And since we say that this example with the pillow was clearly for the need of the object itself, reisha nami letzorech gufo. Then the earlier part of our Mishnah also must be interpreted for the purpose of the need of the object itself, namely the truma, the kosher truma. Okay, picking up now a new piece from our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, af ma'alin v'chule. Says Rabbi Yehuda, one can also remove it, right, regardless. Va'amai, asks the Gemara, why is that the case? Ha kamatake? Okay, isn't it possible that he's making it, the truma, fit? Okay, that he is making it going to be used for some purpose, right? And isn't that then make it prohibited, right? Because that would be a kind of malacha on Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Eliezer severely, saying that Rabbi Yehuda, in this case, holds like Rabbi Eliezer, namely, the Amar Truma be'ena machta. Okay, that Truma, in its pure, unadulterated state, okay, is already considered like it's been separated. The Tznan, excuse me, as we're taught elsewhere in a Mishnah, Se'ah Truma Shenafla Lepachot Mimeya V'Nidma'u. If we have a Se'ah amount of Truma and it fell into to a container, let's say, where there is less than 100, okay, produce in total, v'nidma'u, and they became demai, they became mixed, v'nafal min hamiduma l'makom acher, and then that container's worth of demai, of mixed truma and non-truma, then fell into another container, okay, right? Rabbi Eliezer Omer, says Rabbi Eliezer, midama'at kitruma vadai, right? His attitude is that the original truma from the first container is still valid truma. The Chachamim Omrim, ein hamidumeh medama ela lefi cheshbon. But the sages say that the mixture does not become a valid truma unless we have the appropriate measurement, which we said was 1 and 100, right? Ema, I would say, therefore, the shamat lei lechumra. Are we therefore saying that he is teaching this for stringency? Lekula mi shamat lei, for a leniency? Does this seem to be the case? Elohu da'amar, but rather this is what he seems to be saying, Rabbi Shimon, that this is more like the position of Rabbi Shimon, Keditznan, as was taught elsewhere in another Mishnah. Se'ah truma shenafla leme'ah. If we have a se'ah of truma that fell into a container where there was already 100 amount of of other grain. V'lo hispik lahagbia ad shenafla achareha. And in this case, we see that he did not have the opportunity, okay, to rule on it, to basically say that its status, in other words, declare its status, right, to lift it or to remove it, right, Hare zo asura, that would then be considered forbidden. The Rabbi Shimon matir, but in this case, Rabbi Shimon permits it. In other words, saying that that original truma is acceptable. It's valid truma. Mimai, on what basis? Dilma hatam bahakimiflige. Perhaps we're saying that this is what they're really arguing about. The Tana Kama Savar, that the first Tana holds, Afal Gav divnaflu bazeh achar zeh, even though that original truma fell into this and then fell into this, kiman dinafal bevat echat dami. It's as if it all fell at one time. Vaha lahamashin nafla. Okay, and therefore it's like this fell into 50. Vaha lachamshin nafla. And this fell into 50. So that's why he says, okay, in falling into the second utensil, it's not really 100, okay? It's like half of this good truma and non-good truma fell into the second, and half also fell into the second utensil. For Rabbi Shimon Savar, Kamaita Batil B'meya. And Rabbi Shimon holds, no, that since that fell into the first utensil, and that utensil did have an adequate measurement of meya, of 100, all right? V'hati batel b'meya v'chad. So the Gemara says, but wait a second. Now, okay, isn't it possible that in this case, when it falls into the second utensil, we need more than just 100, right? We need at least 101, right? Elahu da'amar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. No, but this is like the way it was ruled by Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, the Tanya Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, who says, Notein einav b'tzad zeh v'ochel mitzad acher. Okay, and what can he do? He can look at it and consider this part, okay, to be a non, still be demai, but the other part, okay, where he thinks most of the original, from the original container fell into the second container, that he could theoretically eat from, okay, because he could remove at least the seah from that part, okay, and, right, or designate at least that a seah of that part and eat from that, okay, and therefore the act of actually removing is not necessary, right? Umi savarle kivate, asks the Gemara, and who really might agree with him at all in this situation? Vaha miflig paligaluye. Okay, but certainly doesn't he disagree? The Tanya, as is taught elsewhere in a Braita, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ma'alin et ha miduma bechad v'umeya. For Rabbi Yehuda says one has to actually physically remove the truma from the chulin, okay, when it's batel, when it's neutralized, 1 in 100. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, notein einav b'tzad zeh, v'ochel mitzad acher. Okay, whereas Rabbi Shimon says one casts his eye, in other words, one mentally designates one part as one and then eats from the other side. The Rabbi Yehuda, Adifa mid Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. And what we say, therefore, is that Rabbi Yehuda's view is more lenient than even that of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. And that finishes that particular sugya. Okay, we're continuing now with this issue of the base and as we said, whether that is going to render, right, the item muktzah, okay, or the object itself. Matnitin, our new Mishnah. Okay, here's another scenario. Matnitin ha'evan sha'al pi ha'chavit. We have a situation where there is a stone on the top of a cask or a barrel of wine, right? Mata al tzada v'hino felet. Okay, we tilt the cask on its side and let the stone fall off of its own. Haita bein hachavayot, if it's among other casks, right? Magbia, okay, we can lift it, umate al tzida, and then we tilt it on its side, v'hino felet, and then the stone can fall off. Now, we're going to see here now this reference that we had earlier, which tells us that these two Mishnayot actually were one long Mishnah originally. Ma'ot she'al hakar, coins that are on a pillow, mina'er et hakar, v'heina float. We shake the cushion, the pillow, and they should fall off by themselves. Haita alav lashleshet, says the Mishnah. If there was some sort of filth, one translation even went so far as to say bird dung, for example, something on the pillow. Mikancha besmartut, one can wipe it off with a shmata, so to speak. Haita shel or, and if the item, in other words, let's assume it's the pillow, for example, was made of leather, okay? Notnina lehamayim ad shetichle. One can even then pour water on it until it disappears. Gemara. Here's our new text. Amarav huna marav, he says. Lo shanu ela b'shocheach. We only refer this example of the stone on the cask, on the barrel, if somebody forgot about it. Aval b'maniach. But if he put it on there with intent, okay, ne'aseh basis l'davar ha'asur, then that cask becomes a base for something that is forbidden, and therefore it would be prohibited to be handled on Shabbat. Next piece from our Mishnah. Haita bein hachavayot. What happens if that cask was standing among many others? Man tana dechol hecha deika isura vehetera. So we ask the question, which Tana is it who takes the position that where there is something that is forbidden and something that's permitted, behetera tarchinen be'isura lo tarchinen, where in this case we can occupy ourselves with what's permitted, okay, but cannot make the effort to deal with something that's forbidden. Amar Rava bar bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Says Rava bar bar Chana, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. It's the view of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, the Tnan who teaches Haborer Hitnit Biyom Tov, one who, let's say, selects legumes, okay, um, beans, produce, whatever, on a holiday. Beit Shammai omrim borer ochel v'ochel. Okay, Beit Shammai says that one may select the ones that are edible, okay, and eat them basically immediately, okay, right, and then leave the non-edible ones, right. About Hillel omrim borer kedarko, and Beit Hillel says one can eat it in the usual manner, all right. B'cheiko u'b'tamchui, whether on his lap or on the plate. V'tanya, and here we see now a Braita. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, he says, B'med dvarim amorim, what are we talking about here? Sheha'ochel meruba al hapsolet. Okay? He says that where the situation is that sheha'ochel, that which is edible is greater than the non-edible part, okay? The refuse. Aval psolet meruba al ha'ochel, but where the refuse is greater than the edible amount, the food stuff, divrei hakol borer ochel. Everybody then, sorry. Everybody then is in the agreement, okay, that right, he must select only the edible parts. V'hahacha t'chi ochel meruba al hapsolet dami. And do we say then, if that's the case, that in our case of the stone on the cask of wine, that the edible, the drinkable part is greater than the refuse, comparing the wine to the food and the stone to the unedible part. Hachanami, here too, he says, Kevan de'ibai lemishkal lo mishtakil le. Okay, since he, therefore, since he can't drink up or take up the entire item, okay, that even if he wanted to, he's not able to drink it up. That in this case, he can't take all the wine, even if he wants it. So he lifts it up, and in that case, then that's problematic, because it could be that the stone then is greater than the amount of wine that he would have drunk from that cask. And therefore, that's why the situation is not comparable. Okay? Now, we go to a new piece from our Mishnah. Haita ben hachavayot magbia. If it was among the other casks, the Mishnah said he could lift it up and then tilt it. Tanya, a Braita is taught, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Haita chavit munachet ba'otzar. Let's say that this, according to Rabbi Yossi, this cask was there down in the wine cellar, okay, where he stores other casks. O shahayu klei zechuchit munachin tachteha, or that there was some glassware underneath, around where this particular cask was. So let's not think of a large barrel, but a smaller size cask. Magbia lemakom acher, okay? He can lift it to elsewhere. Umate al tzida, tilt it on its side. Vehi nofelet, okay? And then the stone is going to fall off. Unotel himena masha tzarich lo umachzira lemekoma. And he takes whatever amount that he wants out of this small cask and then puts it back in its place. Now we get to our other example from the Gemara, from our Mishnah, I'm sorry. Ma'ot she'al hakar, the coins that were on the cushion. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Ashi, says Rav Chia bar Ashi, Amar Rav, in the name of Rav. Lo shanu ela b'shocheach. Okay, they only taught this in terms of a situation, again, where the person maybe forgot the coins were there, right? Eva b'maniach, but let's say he placed the coins there even before Shabbat on purpose. Ne'asa basis l'davar ha'asur. The cushion, the pillow, then becomes a base for something that is forbidden. Amar Rav bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Lo shanu ela letzorach gufo. They only taught this in terms of the need for the pillow itself, that you could move it. Aval letzorach mekomo, but for the purpose of the place, the location, metal talo v'oden alav. Okay, then in that case you have to move the cushion very carefully, of course, while the coins are still upon it. Okay. V'chein tani Chia bar Rav midiftei, and likewise it was taught by Chia bar Rav from Diftei, lo shanu ela letzorach gufo, that they did not teach this except in terms of the need for the object itself. Aval letzorach mekomo, but for the purpose of its place, its location, its space, metaltalo va'adan alav, one handles it while the coins are still on top of it. Okay? Ma'ot shel al hakar mena'er v'chulei. Okay? If the money is on the pillow and we shake it, right? Amar Rabbi Yoshia, says Rabbi Yoshia, shachach arnaki b'chatzer. Let's say a person forgot his saddlebag, his purse, right? His money bag in his courtyard. Maniach aleha kikar, one comes and puts on it a loaf of bread, o tinok, or a child, umetaltala, and you carry it. Amar Rav Chisda, says Rav Chisda, shachach lavena b'chatzir. Let's say someone forgot a brick, okay, in the courtyard, okay, right? What happens then, right? Maniach aleh kikar otinok umetaltala. Okay, one puts again a loaf of bread or a child on it and carries it. Amar Rabbi Yehuda bar Shila, says Rabbi Yehuda bar Shila, Amar Rabbi Asi. Pam echat shachachu diskaya malaya ma'ot besartaya. He said one time there was a situation where they forgot a saddlebag full of coins, right? There in the thoroughfare, right? A main street. Uba'u v'sha'alu at Rabbi Yochanan. They went and asked Rabbi Yochanan. V'amar lahem, and he said to them, Hanichu aleh kikar, put a loaf of bread on it, o tinok, v'taltaluha, or a child, and carry it. Amar Mar Zutra. So Mar Zutra says in this case, right, Hilchata kichol hani shma'atata v'shocheach. All of these laws are been taught in a situation where someone forgets. Rav Ashi Amar, afilu shachach nami. Rav Ashi says, even if one forgets, and we're going to read in lo, that's right, the lo, right, one shouldn't be doing this, it's not permitted. Okay? Velo amru kikar o tinok ela lemet bilvad. And they only indicated the permission to move, to carry an object using the loaf of bread or a child in terms of moving a corpse. Abai Menach Kappa Akife. Now a couple of stories. Abai used to leave a ladle on a bundle of sheaves of grain. Rava Manach Sakina Abar Yona Umataltala. Ravina used to leave a knife on a young dove and carry it. Amar Rav Yosef, and Rav Yosef, seeing this, was response, Kama Charifa Shematata Dadardaki. How sharp is the ruling of these young men, that they would permit themselves to handle these things, okay, in these kinds of situations, right? Okay. In other words, utilizing this possibility of carrying something to handle it. Okay. Emar the Amur Rabbanan b'shocheach. Okay. But here he says, okay, reason is, right, that it implied that this was only for situations where one forgot it and didn't do it on purpose. Initially, did the rabbis say, was that the attitude, that it would be permitted? Amar Abai, he loved Adam Chashuv Ana. Says Abai, his response is, if I wasn't somebody who was important enough to set an example, okay, why then would I show the idea of leaving the spoon on the sheaves of grain? It shows us that one is able to recline. In other words, still use the sheaves for reclining, for using them, still handle them for another purpose. The spoon really was a ladle. Okay? He doesn't want to show that to tell people that you need to have you can't just use the sheaves mela in any case. Okay. Amar Rava, says Rava, Ana, he loved Adam Chashuvana. If I weren't an important enough person to set an example for people, Sakina Abaryona Lamali. Why would I leave the knife on the young dove? Again, to show the question of Ha-Chazili Le'omsa, to show the fact that it's important in regards to raw meat. Okay? Tama, the Chazi Le'omsa, to show that it's a situation of how they need to deal with this raw meat, right? And handle it appropriately. Halo chazi le'umsa, lo. Because if it was not a situation of handling raw meat properly, perhaps for Yom Tov, lo, then maybe they shouldn't be handling it whatsoever. Lamemra, the Rava Karabi Yehuda severely. So the Gemara wants to know, does this mean to say that the Rava held to the same view of Rabbi Yehuda? Okay. Right. Hamar Rava, the Shamaya. And don't we have a situation where Rava once said to his servant, Tavu li bar avaza. He says, roast me a duck, right? V'shade me'eha v'shunra. And throw its insides, its intestines, to the cat. Okay, let's go on just a little bit. Hatam, there, says the Gemara, kevan de masriach. there, that was an example, we might say, that he told him to throw it because the intestines would spoil. Okay? Gemara says, Da'ate Eluiha me'etmo. No, his mind was on it from the previous day. In other words, he had that intent that that should be done. Okay? And so therefore, he had mentally, in a sense, prepared those intestines separately to be done with. Okay? Hachanami mistabra. Here too, logic would seem to indicate that. The Rava Karabi Yehuda severely. Okay, that Rava held similar to Rabbi Yehuda, the Darish Rava, as in a case where Rava once publicly lectured, Isha lo tikanes lebeit ha'etzim lito mehen ud. A woman should not go into her storehouse for wood, lito mehen ud, in order to take a piece of wood to act as a poker, to stoke the fire in her oven. V'od shenishba asur lahasiko biyom tov. And a piece of wood that is broken, okay, cannot be used on Yom Tov to stoke the fire, to add fuel, right? Lafi shemasikin bekelim ve'ein masikin b'shivrei kelim. Because we say that one can heat with utensils, but not with fragments of utensils. Shma mina. Indeed, this proves that that's the case, namely that Rava accepts the view of muktzah according to Rabbi Yehuda. Okay? And we're going to stop right there for today. Okay? All right, so tomorrow we'll finish up this parak, and then we get to a new one that deals with a slightly different topic.
Okay, thank you very much. Tomorrow, 8 o'clock?
We'll try to start as close to 8 as possible. I know for Erwin and Bob and myself, it puts a little extra pressure, but we'll do what we can. All right, everybody?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Rabbi,
Yeah.
one question. It talks specifically about an Isha taking the wood. Why a woman and why not a man?
Oh, that maybe because she's normally the one that has to deal with the cooking of the food in the oven, and they had pots, you know. So that's the question. On Yom Tov, you can prepare, right? Ochel nefesh. So that's why I would say that the possibility there that she was the one who would go to poke the fire.
Okay.
All right?
Sounds reasonable. Thank you.
Okay. All right, guys. Take care.
Ted, give me a call. Ted, it's Harvey. Give me a call.
Will do.
Thanks.